Welcome to the Sim Racing Expo 2023. In this video I show you all 25 simulators I drove, all the new products and the hardware I tested at the Sim Racing Expo 2023 in Dortmund. I choose the first 20 simulators in random order. Towards the end of the video I show my top 5 simulators. Included is brand new hardware that not even I have been able to test so far, and simulators that are significantly more expensive than my own motion simulator. More detailed and longer videos of specific simulators and hardware will be linked in the video description after the respective video is published. For example, a detailed video about the new Fanatec base, the Simucube Pedals or the Tracktime simulators, including the Ascher racing steering wheels. I'm currently at the ADAC stand where several motion simulators have been exhibited. The simulator I'm currently driving has the same D-Box motion system as I have, and therefore feels very familiar. Hardware from Fanatec was also installed on the rig. Among other things, various events were held on the simulators, which could be seen live and in the stream. Now I'm with the sim racing brand Conspit. As you can see, Conspit has brought a Formula cockpit. The Conspit Formula Cockpit Pro. A projector screen was set up in front of the simulator, which was operated with 3 coordinated beamers. The feeling in the cockpit was very cool. The cockpit really gave you a feeling of sitting in a Formula 1 car. For the pedals, Conspit uses their own hydraulic pedal unit with haptic feedback on the throttle pedal and the brake pedal to simulate vibrations. Unfortunately, you cannot really see the pedals in the cockpit, but you will get to see the pedals in a few minutes. By the way, you could adjust the distance of the pedals with 2 buttons in the cockpit. The 270-degree projection screen with the 3 beamers didn't convince me personally because the picture was a bit distorted. You can see it in the slightly inwardly turned wheels of the Formula 1 car. Apart from that, the immersion feeling was very good. However, I find that screens make a better video quality than beamers. Now we move on to the next cockpit from Conspit, the Conspit Formula Cockpit Lite. The cockpit is basically the same as the Pro cockpit with a slightly different shape. As you can see, the cockpit is a bit more narrow on the sides and has less detail on the outside. However, the inside of the cockpit is the same as I was told by a staff member. Another difference is the lower price. Again, you got a very good F1 cockpit feeling and you could sit very comfortably in the cockpit. Conspit also had a normal Formula 1 style simulator, the Conspit FP Lite. The position of the components like pedals and steering wheel was okay. However, I have to say that I had very limited space for my legs. My knees almost touched the simulator. So if the direct drive had been positioned a little lower, my knee would have touched the simulator. But what really convinced me was the seat. This full carbon seat was very comfortable because of its flexibility. I also found the pad behind the head very good to be able to lean the head on it. Because of the flexibility, there were no problems regarding the force you had to exert on the hydraulic brake. I can say that I found the pedals quite good. For a proper comparison, I would have to test them over a longer period of time, but I found them very good. I especially like the haptic feedback on both pedals because you could feel it very strongly. Here I'm testing the Novus X Motion Simulator. My first impression was that the screens are positioned a little too low, which distracted a little of the immersion feeling. By the way, the motion system and the frame are priced about €40,600 without VAT. Regarding the simulator, I can say that the motion system was quite good, but I missed the haptic feedback in this price segment when I compare it to my own motion system. Nevertheless, the frame of the simulator was very stable. The 3DOF motion system with 100mm travel and 250mm per second travel of speed of the individual actuators felt very realistic. I immediately got on very well with it, as the movements were realistic but not too extreme. The sitting position was also very good. The Tracktime 2DOF seat mover is a simulator that can only simulate 2 axes, but I was personally very interested in it. I myself got started in the motion world with a 2DOF seat mover from SimExperience and was therefore very curious about the comparison. And I was pleasantly surprised how good the system felt, because the system felt better than my old seat mover from SimExperience. The G-force movements were represented very well and precisely. I would even say that I would prefer this system over some 3DOF motion systems, because you get a very realistic feedback for a much lower price. And for all of those who think it will be a problem to operate the pedals precisely as you move forward, I can only say that I don't feel that way. The way you move your legs forward is more or less irrelevant. The biggest movements will happen in the upper body area. If this affects you in the upper body area and when you are steering, depends on the settings of the motion system. If the lateral movements are too extreme, this can be the case. You should test such a system in advance if you have the possibility. With realistic motion settings, however, it should be no problem. Fanatec presented the Formula 1 simulator and the ClubSport direct drive base at the Expo. The base made a very good impression. The torque was high enough for this type of car to drive and the torque was constant. The force feedback effects were also convincing. The Formula 1 style simulator from Fanatec was quite comfortable and the sitting position suited the Formula 1 car very well. I was positively surprised by the simulator. You can find more information about the simulator and the ClubSport DT base in an extra video, which is linked in the video description. SimRep Engineering has introduced a steering wheel and a dashboard in their simulator. By the way, the simulator and the pedals are from my partner Simtag and I can only more than recommend them. You can find a review video of the probably best hydraulic pedals in sim racing in my review playlist on YouTube. The steering wheel ranks very high in terms of quality. The buttons, rotary switches and shifters felt very good in the few minutes I was able to drive. Regarding the steering wheel, it's probably very attractive for small hands or for people who like slim grips. The grips are much slimmer compared to other steering wheels. But something may change with the grips in the future, which I was told by a staff member at the Expo. The dashboard, which is operated with USB and HDMI, also made a good impression. The display and colors were great, and also the workmanship of the aluminium housing. Probably one of the more spectacular simulators at the exhibition was the 60F motion simulator from Prosimu. The simulator covers all 6 movements that can be covered in a motion simulator. For my taste, the settings were a bit too extreme. This means that the simulator moved a bit too much in my opinion. I also had a bit of struggle with this when driving and didn't get on with it straight away. But the extreme movements were probably set to show what the simulator can do. With a motion system that is set not quite so extreme, the motion system is probably one of the best on the market. The system doesn't have integrated haptic feedback in the actuators like D-Box, but the motion system with the many possible movements and the very good actuators is one of the best. On this simulator, at the Bavarian Simtag and Taylor rig stand, we find several components that I have never been able to test. The cockpit is from Taylor rig. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. The rig made a very robust and stable impression, and I was sitting comfortably in the simulator. The Formula style steering wheel is from Bavarian Simtag. For me, the steering wheel fits especially to Formula cars because of its shape. Because of the 300mm diameter, it is also suitable for GT3 and prototypes. In the short test, the steering wheel made a very good and high quality impression, and I got on very well with it. The steering wheel from Bavarian Simtag is a steering wheel that I would like to present in the form of my in-depth review videos in the future. You can also see the base and the pedals from Asetec, but more about that in the Asetec chapter of this video. Asetec, I tested various components of the brand in the Formula 1 style simulator. In the previous chapter, the simulator was already equipped with the Asetec direct drive base and Invicta pedals. I was really positively surprised by the base. The base really had good force feedback. Especially the settings of the setup with the Bavarian Simtag steering wheel were very good. I didn't like the settings on this simulator with the F1 car so much, and the car was also a bit strange to drive. So my positive experience with the base are more from the simulator in the video before. I also like the pedals very much, and they were also installed on several simulators. The brake and throttle pedals had very good resistance and I got on very well with them. Sitting in the simulator was quite comfortable. As you can see, you have an extremely reclined sitting position, even compared to other Formula style simulators. But the seat I was sitting in was comfortable. Like every year, Imsim was again at the Sim Racing Expo with their Alma motion simulator. I have been able to test the simulator many times over the last few years. The pedals from the Imsim were also part of the simulator. As you can see, the motion simulator allows various movements. This includes the rotation around the horizontal axis, which not many motion simulators can do. So it's a kind of traction loss system, just designed a bit differently to other companies. All movements happen particularly directly under the seat instead of via 4 actuators at the edges and behind the simulator. The brake pedal was a bit too light for my taste, but I know from my past experience that the brake pedal can be set much stronger and the high braking force can be set. According to Imsim, up to 160 kg braking force. By the way, Imsim does not use a hydraulic brake system and regulates the braking force via dampers, springs and the pedal angle. The throttle pedal was similar in behavior to other pedals, but throttle pedals really are very different between the different manufacturers. To test the pedals properly, to compare all the characteristics with other pedals, I would have to test them a little longer on my simulator. For the first time, I was able to test the Imsim Terra with integrated D-Box motion system. Most people are already familiar with the D-Box system, and also that I'm a big fan of the D-Box motion system. Therefore, the simulator itself is my focus. As you can see, the D-Box motion system has been integrated into the simulator. Of course, you can see the 4 actuators on the outside. The D-Box control box and all cables of the simulator were integrated into the simulator by Imsim, so that you cannot see anything from the outside. Pedal position and steering wheel position can even be adjusted electrically via buttons on the simulator. On the simulator, the brake pedal was also adjusted to my liking and I got on better with it. I think the simulator is worth considering, especially for exhibitions and driving centers. You don't see any cables, the simulator looks good, and the pedals, steering wheel and sitting position can be adjusted without tools. Venym presents your pedal set on the simulator. Venym also uses a pedal set without hydraulics. The resistance of the pedals is therefore only generated by springs, dampers and the pedal angle. As you can see, the pedal has also some optical gimmicks. The pedals are available in various colors and also with LEDs. By the way, the brake was set to a soft setting in the video, which I liked very much because it matched the car in the simulation. I immediately had a very good feeling on the brake. The brake pedal was very smooth, precise to use, and you still had a lot of resistance. I was able to test the Arnage steering wheel for the first time on the P1 Sim simulator, a steering wheel with a vertically oriented display. The shape and diameter of the steering wheel fit very well with small Formula cars such as Formula 4, Formula Renault 2.0 or the Indy Pro 2000 car. The steering wheel felt really good in the hand and the buttons had a good resistance. In P1 Sim, however, it was especially the pedals that were convincing. The hydraulic brake system had a high and very pleasant resistance. I also found it particularly good that haptic feedback is integrated on the brake pedal and the throttle pedal, which works with SimHub. Here, effects such as curbs, ABS or traction control are transmitted via a small motor. I also found the option of the heel rest on the base plate very well executed to prevent the heels from slipping sideways. Again, I can only hope to present the steering wheel and the pedals on my simulator as well on my YouTube channel in the future. A very interesting combination. At Sabelt, my attention was focused on the seat and the steering wheel. The Sabelt SW1R steering wheel is a combination of a Sabelt steering wheel and the Ascher racing button plate. This combination will soon be available for purchase. Everyone knows that the Ascher racing button plate is good, but the steering wheel was also convincing. The material of the grips is similar to my turn racing steering wheel. A slightly rough and flexible surface which is very similar to car leather. However, the grips are not made of car leather but a rubber-like material was used. The seat is extremely comfortable. I've rarely sat so comfortably in a Formula 1 style seat. Very good shape and very well padded for longer sessions. By the way, the Sabelt gloves were also very comfortable. They are light, not very thick and have a lot of grip. The Sim Switch simulator from Get Closer Racing had a very realistic sitting position. The sitting position was very close to that of a Formula 1 car, if not identical. But this also had disadvantages. Getting into the simulator was quite complicated, not only because of the wheelbase mount in the middle of the simulator, but also because of the height of the simulator caused by the motion system. But once you are sitting in the simulator, it is very comfortable to drive. The simulator also has various buttons on the frame to adjust the position of the pedals or even the seat electrically. Get Closer Racing has also installed their own Sim Switch pedal on the setup. For my taste, the brake was a bit too stiff and I had some problems to find the right brake pressure. Of course, this could have been just a brake resistance setting, because the hydraulic brake is step-lessly adjustable and can be configured with a resistance up to 200 kilograms. In terms of quality, the simulator and also the pedal set made a very high quality impression. By the way, to the right of the simulator is another simulator from Get Closer Racing. This one even made it into my top 5 and is shown at the end of the video. Then I will also go into a bit of detail about the motion system. Here I introduce you to Grid Racing G-Seat. Yes, that's right, this is mainly about the seat on the simulator. As you can see on the right, there are air pillows in the seat that simulate the G-forces. A little info, the seat is still a prototype and not final. In this prototype there are only pillows in the thigh area. Later there will also be pillows in the side back area and shoulder area. From the video you can see that when you drive into a corner and the G-forces will push you into the seat in a real car, this function is taken over by a lateral pillow which is filled with air. Later on you can define for yourself how much air should go into the pillow. So you can set that when you drive Formula 1, more air is blown into the pillow than when you drive a GT3 car with lower G-forces. So you will be able to adjust the ratio. You feel a very small latency when you go into the corner. This is because pneumatics can never fill the pillows one-to-one with the simulation. However, the final pillows were not installed at the Expo. The pillows that will be used and sold later will be much faster. The latency was acceptable, and with improved pillows this could be another step towards an even better immersive feeling in the simulator. The seat is also supposed to be compatible with all racing simulations and also flight simulators. The prototype has already made me curious and I'm looking forward to the further development of the seat. SimRaceShop.de exhibited a simulator with the new Simucube pedals at the Expo. The Simucube Active pedal has a brake pedal and a regular Simucube throttle pedal. The throttle pedal is a normal throttle pedal and made a very good impression on me. But you will be most interested in the Simucube Active pedal, and I can say that the pedal is extremely cool. I could only take a quick look at the software, but what I could see was that you can adjust everything step-lessly via the software. Braking force, braking distance and also the pedal curve can be adjusted. When driving, really everything can be simulated, like ABS for example. Sometimes you can see in the video that the pedal works against the force I exert on the pedal in the braking phase. That's how the G-forces are simulated. Also, any vibration can be simulated with the pedals, such as engine vibrations. It's really incredible that something like this is possible. Of course, there's a hook to all this. You can imagine it, it's the price. A single pedal costs over 2,300 euro. The pedal can also be used as a throttle pedal and clutch. However, it makes the most sense as a brake pedal. If you want all three pedals, you have to pay well over 6,000 euro. I would have been interested in testing the pedal as a throttle pedal to simulate traction control or spinning wheels, but unfortunately no one at the expo had installed the pedal as a throttle pedal. If I had the money, I would buy the pedal as a brake and throttle pedal. It would be very cool to be able to switch from a Formula 1 brake pedal to a GT3 brake pedal or throttle pedal with one click in the software. But even then, you would have to pay around 4,400 euro. I have already published a more detailed test video of the pedals on YouTube with much more video material, with which you can see the functionality of the pedals in more detail. This video is linked in the video description. At Race at Home, I was able to test a 6DRF motion simulator with PT Actuators Actuators. I think that if you want to build a rally simulator, you have to use this motion system. You have a very large stroke of the actuators and very fast reaction times. Of course, it's also suitable for GT3 and Formula 1, but its full potential and advantages over other systems such as the D-Box comes from its stroke range and the possible traction loss and surge. The simulator can move up and down up to 200 mm with the 4 lateral actuators, as well as tilt sideways and forward and backwards. The actuator in front and behind the simulator simulates the traction loss with up to 250 mm. Since 2 actuators are used, the traction loss is very fast. There is also an actuator under the seat that moves the simulator up to 200 mm forwards and backwards, which simulates the G-forces during braking and acceleration. This is the surge effect. A small minus point with the system, there is no haptic feedback integrated as with D-Box. However, if you want to build the ultimate rally simulator, PT Actuators is the place to go. If it is also worth it for GT3 and Formula cars, everyone has to decide for themselves. Now we have reached the top 5. My 5th place goes to Prosimu with this rally simulator. If you want a rally setup with motion, I would always recommend traction loss. And that's exactly what you have in the setup, in addition to the 2 actuators at the front. The 2 actuators at the front simulate the wheel suspension and the actuator in the back simulates sliding sideways with the car. This simulator was really fun to drive. I have already shown the 6DRF motion simulator from Prosimu from minute 16 of the video. This system, which you can see right now, is a 3DRF system. 3DRF, not 4DRF, because the simulator cannot do the lifting movement because it has no vertical actuators at the back. It tilts sideways, forwards and backwards, and the third movement is traction loss. Fourth place goes to Tracktime with the flight simulator. Tracktime has equipped one of its simulators as a flight simulator. Flying with the setup was unbelievably good. The lateral movements when you flew into the corner were so good and realistic that I sometimes had a feeling of really sitting in an airplane. The fact that you moved slightly against the steering wheel contributed to this. In VR or in a triple screen setup, the whole thing would have been even cooler and more realistic. It was a bit difficult to operate the pedals when the simulator was tilted forwards or backwards, as the movements were very large. But after a while, it got better and better. By the way, we flew with the Microsoft Flight Simulator. I had already shown GetCloser Racing with their SimSwitch simulator. This is the second simulator that GetCloser Racing has brought along, and I found this one even better. So good that it made it into my top 3. I'm a big fan of simulators made from aluminium profiles, which for me is a big plus over the SimSwitch simulator. The force feedback was very good, I got on very well with the racecraft pedals, and the motion system gave an excellent feedback. The motion system is built by GetCloser Racing and is comparable to an SFX motion system. The setup has no haptic feedback either, but an SFX motion system is also much cheaper than a D-Box motion system. I also have to say that I hardly missed the haptic feedback in the setup. In combination with the VR glasses and a rather bumpy racetrack like Zandvoort, it was a great experience to drive the simulator. Second place goes to Actoracer, who have continued to expand their racing simulator in recent years. A few years ago it was still a normal 2DOF seat mover, and now traction loss and a platform mover with actuators under the platform have been added. Rarely has a motion system been as well tuned as this one. All axes of motion were in harmony and it just felt right. Of course, there are 6DOF motion systems with more motion axes, but then it often feels like too much at once. I was already looking forward to the Tracktime simulator before the Sim Racing Expo, as it is a simulator that always gives a very good feedback to the driver. The Tracktime 3 Motion is a seat mover with a 3DOF motion system. As you can see, the simulator has not only 2 actuators like all other seat movers, but 3. 2 on the side and 1 behind. This means that in addition to the 2 tilting movements to the side and forwards and backwards, it can also perform the lifting movement upwards. This is an important movement, especially with bumps, in order to simulate the bumps realistically. So it can do all the movements that my D-Box motion system can do. The difference to other 3DOF motion systems like the SFX or D-Box motion system is that with the Tracktime 3 Motion only the seat moves. In the seat mover motion sector, the Tracktime 3 Motion is by far the market leader and the best system. If you prefer a seat mover to a platform mover such as the D-Box system or not, everyone should test it out for themselves if they have the opportunity. However, I must say that I would prefer the 3 Motion to be available as a motion module that can be integrated into a simulator made of aluminium profiles. I'm a big fan of simulators made of aluminium profiles because you can attach something to the simulator wherever you want. You are not bound to fixed mounting points. Nevertheless, the Tracktime 3 Motion offers many possibilities to attach hardware to the simulator, as you can see in this setup with the shifter and the handbrake. There's also a seatbelt tensioner installed in the simulator that presses the seatbelts against the body during specific movements of the motion system. It was also very cool to test the Ascher Racing McLaren Ultimate wheel for the first time. I will also be getting the steering wheel for a review video and I'm already very excited about it. The steering wheel felt very good in the few laps I was able to drive, and the buttons, rotary switches and shifters made a high quality impression. More information will come when I have the wheel at home. I hope you enjoyed the video and was able to show you many interesting simulators, motion systems and hardware. As already mentioned, many individual videos will follow in the next few weeks. These videos will then be linked in the video description. If you have any further questions, please write them in the comments. For more videos, subscribe to the YouTube channel Let's Go Race. See you next time.